Underrated. Who's the most underrated artist in your subjective opinion right now? Or if, I know it's a tough question, like, or you can name one or two, just who's right now, in your opinion, fairly new, just underrated right now?
Fairly new, underrated artist?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a great question.
Or they don't even have to be fairly new. Maybe they're actually very big and you're actually like, man, people think this person made it. Wait till they see the next decade of her or his or their potential.
I mean, that is such a good question. I think that Post is already so big. A lot of the artists that I work with are
let's talk about that. Like Post, actually, it's funny. I think I asked the question because you said Post. I actually think Post has the potential to be underrated because I actually believe that.
Yeah, I agree. So I would, and anybody that works with him would tell you the same thing. I think Post is underrated. You go, why? He's so big. He's so big. Da 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 da. Yeah, he is truly though.
Beyonce and Drake were so big and were underrated and went on to become bigger.
Yep, absolutely. Sway Lee. Look, Sway Lee is one of the most freak of nature talents, melody contrivers in the world. The guy will come up with melodies and phrases that reminds me of when Tricky and the Dream created Rihanna Umbrella. And the first time anyone heard that, like that started a whole wave, right? And Sway Lee has that ability. He has that talent. Sway Lee, if he connects the dots, could be one of the absolute biggest pop artists that are around.
So Sway Lee, you feel, has the ingredients. He just has to cook it.
Correct. He has to cook it.
Which is hard. By the way, everybody who's listening right now, when I talk about this in sports, in entrepreneurship, in music, in acting, in being a CFO of a company, I have watched I turned 45 this Saturday. In my young 45 years, I've seen so many people that had every ingredient, but couldn't get out of their ways of insecurity, ego, lack of work ethic, serendipity, a tragic event in their family didn't let them get there. In sports, you see people get hurt. There's different things.
And team. So who your team is, it is such a limited group of people that can absolutely displace you or influence you positively in your career. And if someone in your team isn't firing on all cylinders, they can, whether knowingly or unknowingly, completely sabotage your future with whatever that is.
Like a band.
Company, like a band, dude. You got a bad manager. I went through a handful of managers before we landed with the one that I have now. I have the same manager of Pharrell and Usher and a handful of others. He's brilliant, one of the best in the business. We're on the feet. It took me 3 or 4 chapters of managers and literally getting dropped by Columbia Records. I've been dropped twice. It took all that for me to land the right manager. And I learned the lesson of who your team is everything. It's absolutely everything. It's critical. So I think Sway Lee's underrated. Taylor Swift, as big as she is, nobody's been in the studio with her. Like, they haven't seen what I've seen her actual innate ability exceeds just about any human being that I've ever seen. She is the best solo writer that's recording music right now. She can sit down and do a whole thing by herself. It's phenomenal. The single greatest musician in the world. Now, I don't know if you consider this person underrated or overrated. I just don't think he's talked about enough. I think he's admired, but the single most impressed I've ever been musically by anyone is Stevie Wonder. There is no one alive that he is the physical embodiment of music, period.
I would argue that he's uncomfortably underrated. Uncomfortably.
Okay, there you go.
I'll tell you why. I maybe the reason I just asked you this to wrap up, because I got to run. I'm sure you do as well. I did this little, Instagram TikTok show called Overrated, Underrated, and I don't know the questions, and my team just blurts out stuff, and it's
I thought that was what we were doing. Rapid fire.
Yeah. It's funny. And anyway, I said the Beatles were underrated, and the comments exploded. They're like, "How is the?"
No, you're 100% right.
But I think they are. I think most people under 35 struggle to understand it in context, as they should, because I understand who's going to do the homework. Yep. I think Stevie Wonder was winning at 10.
Yeah, winning at 10.
At 10. I just want everybody to hear that. Hold on, real quick. I apologize, Ryan. 10. Most of you have a 10-year-old in your life. Yours, your brother, your sister. 10. One of the biggest stars in the world at 10.
Yep. And the only artist to win back-to-back Best Album Grammys within a year of each other. He did 2 albums in a row, won album of the year 2 years in a row. The man is the single most talented musician alive. I put my name on it. Paul McCartney. I produced his last album. We had the first #1 Paul McCartney album in 35 years. And I watched McCartney jump around his studio in England playing every instrument, which, by the way, they were the instruments from Sgt. Pepper. He has all of them still there. That's what he uses. And I watched him bounce around. I go, Paul, get on the drums. And I hit record. And then he'd do the drum solo. Paul, get on piano. Get on the harpsichord.
Fucking amazing.
The man is 74, and he bounced around for 5 days playing everything. It was like